My name is Maputi Matebula, and today I will be looking at reading and comprehension and adhering to exam questions as part of today's workshop. And just to alert those who are joining us for the first time, this is workshop number 5 that we are currently on. And just a reminder to the students as well about individual consultations. That's if you do require assistance with maybe your assignment or reading a piece of work that you might need some assistance with, you're not clear, looking at the past workshops and what I've assisted students with or taught on, if you're not clear, I'm happy to assist. I just would like to voice out when it comes to setting of appointments is that I'm flexible. I always request students to please set up 2 separate dates with 2 separate times, and then I can look at which can I accommodate in terms of setting up of appointments. The one challenge I've noticed with students is many of you are submitting assignments that are due quite promptly. So I usually take about 3 days to read your assignment or your document that you have sent and to prepare. So I do urge you that if you have a piece of work, assignment, or anything that's due, you do send it in time to also give me enough time to prepare. All right. And also, just on that, with setting of appointments, it's important that you honor your appointment. Remember that Ms. Janke blocks her time, I block my time, and I need to be present and I need to have made notes and prepared your document for consultation. And if you don't pitch, it's not fair on both of us because we've set our time. Okay, so I'm just asking that if you do set time, that you actually honor your word, and if you're unable to, kindly let us know in time. When you're sending me your assignment or your document, kindly also give me enough instructions as to maybe what have the lecturers asked of you. If there's been a mark allocation, kindly note it, because sometimes you would send, I've noted students would send an assignment and there's not a mark allocation or maybe a previous or a question that has been attached, so that I can also have an idea when comparing the work you have submitted as well as what I need to assist you with. So just a recap from the previous workshops. These are the topics that have been addressed. I'm not going to go much into detail, but just to highlight some of what has been previously covered. So in our first workshop, we covered writing strategies and how to be a strong writer. In that particular workshop, we addressed how to write a better essay or assignment, and we took the metaphor of a burger and looked at introductions. How can you better phrase or write an introduction? Looking at your first point, that would be your filling inside a burger, your second paragraph, your second point paragraph, your third point paragraph being your patty, as well as your conclusion and how to write that. I've addressed that. I'm just highlighting and giving some of you who are new to this workshop as to what has been previously covered. If you wish to go back or just to rather obtain an understanding, I would suggest that you write an email to Ms. Janke requesting for the workshop slides as well as the recording. Okay, and then we continued to look at parts of a paragraph, and as I did say that we looked at the metaphor of using a burger, so that at times you find that visual other students understand work a lot better if it's in the form of a visual setting. So we looked at parts of a paragraph, how to look at your topic sentence, how to write a supporting sentence, as well as in the end, how to phrase or just document a conclusion. Okay. Then we looked at, and then in the following workshop after that, we looked at tips and techniques when writing an assignment. We looked at a synonym called peel, where you would make a point in your introduction or in your entire passage, how you provide evidence. We looked at how do you actually provide evidence, the kind of evidence that you can use, where can you obtain sources. We also
Mrs. Matebula.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to check, are you moving through the slides or you are still on slide number 1?
No, I've actually moved through the slides. Let me just go out
Yeah,
again. Beginning. Sure. Okay. So
because
can you
all
see?
along it was on slide number 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Can
now
you see
we
the
can see, yeah, now you,
Can you see the slide?
yes.
Okay, let me just go through it again. So thank you for that. So we looked at paragraph. We looked at we looked at the metaphor, as I mentioned, about a burger and how to actually write well, with an essay or an assignment topic. We looked at the top bun would be your introduction, and then your letters would be your first point paragraph, meaning that it's what, as I was explaining about peel, it's your point. What would your point be? Your second point paragraph would be a bit of your relish or your filling, and that would be just to provide evidence or meat to your work. The third point paragraph would be to provide an explanation and more evidence as to the topic that or the point that you are supporting. And then we looked at a conclusion. So just to remind students, sorry about that, it's just about the analogy of the burger or the metaphor that we used. I have emphasized that in the first workshop, we looked at introduction and how to better write an introduction. And then we looked at the filling of a burger, and that would be your first point, your main points that you have selected or which stance you're taking in terms of your writing. We looked at the second paragraph. We looked at the third paragraph as to what you can put, and we looked at like a meaty filling in terms of evidence or supporting structures that you can utilize. And then this was followed by your conclusion, which is the bottom of the bun. Okay. And then this was followed by looking at parts that form a paragraph so that more details could be provided for students. And as I did say, that those of you who might have missed the first 4 workshops or one or either of the workshops, kindly requesting that you actually request the slides and as well as the audio, and then you can just look through or listen through what has been said. And then if you need any clarity or any support, you can contact Ms. Janke. So we looked at parts of a paragraph. We looked at your topic sentence. And with your topic sentence, we looked at this usually tells the reader or about the main idea or what the paragraph will be about. And we looked at your supporting sentence. This usually provides the reader with specific details relating to the main idea or point. And then we looked at the other form of supporting sentence that can be used, which is maybe topic sentence number 2, that continues to support the main idea, as well as supporting sentence number 3 that gives more specific details. This would be followed by the concluding sentence, and the concluding sentence or paragraph refers to the main topic sentence that just sums up the main idea as to the contents that has been described or explained within your assignment. Okay. We then looked at yes.
Sorry. I think I would need to just leave and come back because I think I'll be monitoring 4 classes today alone.
No problem.
If you check on me and I'm not available, just know that I'm attending to another workshop, which is starting right now at 9 o'clock. But I'll just keep on coming back and checking on the chats and everything. So everyone who wants to say something or maybe ask a question, if I'm not noting your hand, please leave the question on the chat. Then I'll come back and read it to Mrs. Maputi. Or I don't know, maybe they should just say something if they want to ask a question.
Yes. So what will happen is that it's fine, Ms. Janke, you can leave, and then I will have a point, like just a point within the presentation where I will take questions, no problem. And I'll ask those that have noted it just to read up what has been written in the text in the chat box, and we'll take it from there.
All right. And for those who are sending how to get hold of the recordings, please check your chats. I've already written something on the chat. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. All right. And then within, in one of the other workshops, we looked at tips and techniques when writing. I was actually on this point when I was told that you were unable to see my slide. We looked at your points that you need to make when you write, a clear point that you need to write or make when you're writing your assignment or essay. We looked at the different forms of evidence that one can look at, and we showed a lot of examples. We also looked at explanations, one of the techniques or ways that you can utilize explanation, and also linking or summarizing your work and how you can actually do that as a student. So that was covered in one of the workshops. I am requesting that those of you who wish to further maybe just touch base or just listen or look through the slides, you are more than welcome to do that. Okay. And then in one of the other workshops, we looked extensively and we actually went a little bit over time with Harvard referencing style, which was quite interesting. We looked at in-text citation as to how do you reference in-text, how do you in-text reference various sources. We looked at government journals, we looked at gazettes, we looked at newspaper articles, we looked at books. We looked at books with editors, with one or more editors. We looked at various sources. So there's just been a multiple. We looked at maybe just from the top of my head, dissertations that were already published and non-published, and we also looked at authors that want to be anonymous. So there's just quite a list that we looked at, and this was followed by illustrations on how to improve your reference list or your bibliography, and how to actually remember where to put the commas, the full stops, the years, and also the place or the location, and also the publisher's details. So we looked at that, and those of you who still wish to refresh your memory, you are more than welcome to request the slides. And with Harvard referencing, I did mention previously to all the students that it is important that it does become a little bit overwhelming when you are writing an assignment. I always urge students to rather write your entire assignment first and then look through the sources that you've utilized and put them in the appropriate place. You firstly in text, then followed by your reference list. With your reference list, I was saying that it is important to always note that whatever's in your reference list has to be found in text, within your in-text referencing. If it's not, there's no correlation. At times, you do find that lecturers, you've made an interesting point, or, when they're looking at your reference list, it's actually a source they would like to further read up on. It is important that it is referenced correctly, and lecturers or anyone can actually have access to that particular source. We also looked at various sources that are used when internet sources and academic journals that are utilized. So we looked at that, and I also just spoke to students about not utilizing Wikipedia because it is not an academic source. Blogs are not an academic source. And we actually had a little discussion around what is an academic source and not. I won't touch much into it, but this was just a snippet as to workshops, what has been covered. Okay, so on this particular slide, it was just an introductory phrase that was written and just highlighting what in-text referencing looks like, as well as a reference list as well. Okay, and then just so shortly, with the Harvard referencing style, we also looked at utilizing of paraphrasing, summarizing, and also of direct quotations, and also limiting plagiarism as well. Okay, we also then in one of the other workshops, we looked at writing tools to improve your writing topics, because remember, I always say in all the workshops that writing is just similar to a muscle that you train up so that it gets fit. If you know techniques, you look at what works for you, it usually becomes a lot easier over time. However, it takes practice as well and a lot of patience. And if there's work that you don't understand, I always urge students to always ask the lecturer, and just to gain more clarity and to be invested in your schoolwork. And if there's work that you don't understand, you are more than welcome to always ask, for an individual consultation, and then we can take a look at your assignment. All right. Just with that, before I continue with individual assignments, please make sure that you don't send an assignment that you know is due in 2 days' time and you need me to look at it. I usually take about 2 to 3 days to look at a student's work, to make correct notes, and to prepare for a workshop. So I'm just urging that when it comes to any consultation, all right, or preparation of some sort. And just before I conclude on what has been taught in the other workshops, is that we looked at the rules of thumb for paraphrasing, and we just looked at the thumb itself. And so I'll just read the first line, that in general most paragraphs have 3 to 5 sentences. We usually look at it's very short as well. And then we looked at the basic parts of a paragraph. I think that would be the analogy of the burger that has been used. So that is it for all the workshops that has been covered. But today I'm going to be speaking on a totally different topic. So with these workshops, I always say to students that it's not to say that you don't understand or have an idea of how to write, but it's throughout your undergrad career or chapter, rather, maybe let me say it's a chapter, you always find that common phrases or common ideas are always shared, or they are verbalized. This is just more to remind you so that it is engraved in your mind. By the time you get to postgrad, it's a lot easier for you and it becomes second nature. So not to say that, with what I will be highlighting today or teaching today, you have no idea about that, you're a blank canvas. No one can be a blank canvas. It's not possible. There are some things that you know or read or seen. So this is just to remind you, and so that you actually become empowered as well. Okay, so with today, I will be looking at reading comprehension and adhering to exam instructions. So with the part B, exam instructions and adhering to them, I will be looking at that at the later stage, but for now, it's more focusing on just reading or reading comprehension, okay? So with reading comprehension, there are quite a few strategies I'm sure many of you have come across. The first one is to, you reread the text. You reread the text for more understanding. It's just like receiving an instruction from an assignment. In order to obtain more information, as a student, you would reread the text, you would highlight it, you would underline it in order for you to obtain more understanding. You would also activate your prior knowledge, and this is what I have referred to. Prior knowledge, I actually mean that you would actually think about what you already know about this particular topic. Have you heard anything? Have you read anything? Have you seen anything, observed? It's always, that is part of what we call a reading comprehension strategy. The third topic is, you would use context clues. Context clues would be normally, if you're reading a sentence or an instruction, is to get clues as to, what is the assignment about, the essay about, or what is the lecturer asking in this particular exam question. Okay. And then the other is to read in between, infer meaning, reading in between the lines. This is where you want to apply a bit of your abstract thinking, to think that what could the lecturer actually be asking or looking at, right? The other form of reading comprehension would be thinking out loud, talking through it. Reading actually out loud actually helps your brain to actually process it a bit better at times. For others, it depends on your own strategy. It's not to say that all these strategies that I have mentioned, everybody utilizes. It's case dependent on what works for you. But if you are keen, you can try what I am actually suggesting here. The other form of reading comprehension strategy would be to summarize the story. People usually take notes. You'd look at the problem, the solution, or if it's a story, who could be the characters, where's the setting. You would look at that. Okay. Any instruction that is given or work that is done, you need to locate the keywords in order to further understand what is being requested of you. The other part of reading strategy, you can make predictions. Making predictions just such as locating your keywords, grouping your words, such as you thinking you're pairing your word together so that you can be able to understand better. Okay, comprehension. You could also use a word, we call it word attack strategies, meaning that you look at your prefix, it's words before a root word or the main word, and the suffix is the word at the end. So it's just like reading at the end. So you would just take a look at that. This is when you are trying to unpack further as to the instruction that is given. It's just one of the techniques that is used. The other, we call it visualization. Visualization, you can visualize, you can use pictures, depends on what kind of a person you are and what works for you. Others use graphic organizers. I have made a note here that in one of our writing tools, in one of our writing sessions, we looked at ways to improve your writing. We looked at mind mapping, so you can use graphic organizers. We looked at different models that you can use, and others used maybe charting examples just as an illustration for you to better understand. Comprehension means to understand better. So you're reading the way you could understand reading a little bit better. And then the other way that you can actually utilize is actually to evaluate your understanding. What did you learn, and what is your understanding? Okay, so I will take questions after the first couple of slides. I'm just asking that you listen in and you take notes if you need to, or you'll just get your slides. But if there's questions, I will take them later on. So when you're writing an assignment, it's always important to know what kind of assignment is it. Not all assignments or essays rather are the same. You usually get what we call your narrative assignment or essay. This is usually where you tell a story. Okay, you narrate a story. Okay. Then there's what we call a descriptive essay. This is where it puts a picture in your head. This is where you're actually describing to the reader as to what exactly are you speaking about. If you remember the hamburger, the burger, the hamburger, then you can actually look at in between the filling and all of that, you actually trying to describe or make your point. Then there is what we call exploratory. It means that you're explaining something. So when you're exploring, you are further elaborating or explaining exactly what it is that the concept that you're trying to explain. Persuasive writing or persuasive essay is you want your audience to agree. So usually it's when you're trying to make a certain point, but you have evidence to back up what you're saying in order for the writer to be convinced that the point you're making is correct. Okay. So just to highlight again about these particular workshops, it's just for self-development, to remind you of, what you already know, other topics or other subjects you might not already know. And it's always good that across this journey, there is learning that takes place. Okay. Then if you already know what I'm facilitating on today, it's good. Just take it as knowledge, and that I'm hoping that it can actually be engraved more in your mind. Okay. And just to look at the different forms of writing, you get fiction and non-fiction. And with fiction, it's usually when, as we said, that with narrative, it's usually when someone is telling a story. And with fiction, it says that while parts of the text may be based on real world, the overall story or ideas are not true. So fiction, it's usually a point of view or a story that you wish to tell. At times it can be true and not true. It doesn't mean that with fiction it's not true. Okay. But it's just you narrating a story. Okay. And you can actually, with narrating a story, you can add your own plot twists. There's ways that you can actually make it quite interesting. Okay. Then other forms of writing, it's non-fiction. So the information in the text is true. So this is usually in your academic work. So the author, you don't add any imaginary details or facts. It is written the way it's written. Okay. And with nonfiction, the text is written to present information. It usually uses several organized text structures, including descriptions, where the lecturer might have asked you to explore, to contrast, meaning that to compare, and to use cause and effect, problem, and to provide a solution. So I am sure that many of you have come across all of this. It's not new. If it is new, I'm just encouraging that you learn and you make notes as well, and we'll take questions at a later stage. Okay, so as I was saying that there are different types of essays, I'm just on this particular slide, it's just to elaborate more as to what I have been saying. So with narrative essays, let's just say that, remember, it's you telling a story. It could be my first encounter with snow. Recently in Johannesburg, we had snow for the first time. Not first time, but it's just for others, it might have been the first time. For others, I think it's the second time. Years ago, I remember it snowed once. So a narrative essay could also look at maybe an embarrassing experience you've had. Remember, it's from your point of view. Can be about a summer vacation or your travel blog where you've went to. It could just different topics. So it's how I turned a boring day into the most exciting one. So these are just about your own experience. Okay, and then I'll move over to descriptive essays. So with descriptive essays, descriptive means to describe. So, you could look at the most interesting dream, the annual day celebration example, just different topics, but just trying to highlight this is where you tend to describe more, all right, in your academic work. Exploratory essays you could look at maybe, let's say, a healthy lifestyle, the history of mankind, and maybe just a feminist perspective or different perspective. It's usually if you want to explore a certain concept, a genre, or a certain topic actually, then you provide quite a little bit of more information, evidence as well. And then with persuasive essays, remember in the previous slide, I did say that with persuasive essays, you're trying to persuade the reader to agree with what you have written. Okay, so there are various topics. I've just listed just a few here to give you an idea. Maybe one about the second last, just here, the second last point talks about ebooks versus traditional books. Maybe in your topic, you could write that maybe ebooks are a lot more convenient and better than traditional books that are in a library, and you can state why. Maybe just looking at UNISA as an institution that it's distance learning. So for some students, it might be an advantage to actually utilize more ebooks than having to travel long distances to obtain a library book. Just giving you an idea of what a persuasive essay would be. Okay, so today I'm actually, as I did say, that I'm looking at writing, but exploratory. So just to look at today, we are looking at reading comprehension, right? And then one of the texts that we need to understand, students need to understand a little bit better, is about what is an exploratory text. So exploratory writing is a mode of writing in which the purpose of the author is to inform, explain, describe, or define his or her own subject to the reader. Okay, so when you're writing this kind of an essay where you're trying to explore or explain, there are many instructions that are usually given by lecturer. They would maybe want you to further explain or describe, but your work here is to elaborate further, to show examples. Okay, so examples of exploratory texts are that you can use textbooks, you can use sources such as an encyclopedia, a scientific book or journal, and biographies or newspapers. Okay, so it's just to give you an idea as to the kind of other sources that you can utilize. Okay. You might ask yourself, maybe in a definition, but I'm still not clear as to what an exploratory text is. So a definition here is that an exploratory text is just a fancy phrase for things like information reports, book reviews, biographies, persuasive texts that explain and instruct. Okay. So we are always surrounded by exploratory texts because of we've got quite a number of texts always around us, you know, such as the example has been listed here: book reviews, biographies, work that is always written, magazines, newspapers are using it, you know, we use it as well in speech writing, essays, government documents, and a lot of other in a lot of other places as well. Okay. So to further explain here, so whenever you're writing a text or an assignment, it's always important, you know, whenever all of you have written some form of document and it's always been exploratory, just the when we characterize it or we categorize it, you know, now you know that it's actually exploratory because you've always, like the burger, you've always given facts, you've always provided examples and information about the topic, meaning that it's evidence. You've presented your information in a logical order. So last week in one of the slides, I was actually looking at cohesion and flow of work, of your writing. So this speaks to it as well. And then you also use certain text structures to organize your information. When we say certain text structures, we're actually looking at the format in which you're writing. So it would be your introduction, your body, and your conclusion, just the order in which you are actually writing your particular assignment or text. Okay. Just another slide to provide you again with what we call expository text structure. The way a text is organized and refers to different forms the author uses to organize the text. Remember, we described it to say that there is always a description, meaning that the point that you're making, there's always a chronological sequence. Chronological sequence means that from beginning to the end, there's a flow as well. Last week, I did address on cohesion, okay, and coherence when writing any assignment or any text. It's always important to look at a problem and a solution, cause and effect. You compare and you contrast. Usually, in your text or in your essay structure, these are the common characteristics that a reader can take note of. So in your expository text, we still looked at different sources. I had highlighted them earlier on. So you're looking at your textbooks. We mentioned your non-fiction books or fiction, your non-fiction books, in meaning that it's your sources in the library. We looked at newspaper and magazine articles. You can actually look at depending where you get your sources, directions, essays, speeches, and other manuals, or even your study guide as well. All right. So this is what could include as an expository text. Okay. This is followed that there are certain elements found in any expository text. Each type of element makes its own demands. Okay, so you might find that in one of your essays or in one of your exam questions, your lecturer says, provide a description of. You automatically know that this is an expository text, a text that requires you to expand more and show understanding as to the topic that you are discussing. Okay. The sequence of it, we did speak about it, and I'm just repeating what my previous slide has mentioned: comparison, cause and effect, problem and solution, proposition and support, looking at how your work is actually structured and how you can best support what you're saying. Okay. Right, then we have what we call an informational text. The type of text here is that it's non-fiction, and it also explains or tries to convey information. So these kind of non-fiction or informal texts, as they're described, as I've highlighted previously again, It's examples that can be used are textbooks, encyclopedias, magazines, websites, and pamphlets, or even a study guide. Okay, so I'm just saying that I am aware that you are aware of textbooks, encyclopedias, journals, and all the different sources, but maybe now understanding the actual wording that is used in an academic sense. Okay, so just moving on to my next slide. Just have a sip of water. So with an informative text, when you're providing more information or explanation, so excuse me, the purpose is to explain or inform. Okay, so when you're writing an assignment, there has to be a purpose to what is it that you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to explain? Are you trying to inform? Are you trying to explain? Are you trying to compare? Are you trying to explain further cause and effect? So there has to be a specific point. If you remember back now, on one of the slides that I was just highlighting from the previous workshops, was just more about using that metaphor called peel. So every workshop, it's more of an add-on of what has been previously taught. Okay, so with informative text, so a definition would be that it is a form of a text that conveys information accurately. Okay, and the purpose is to increase the reader's knowledge of the subject. I always encourage students, when you're writing, please write an assignment as though the particular reader or lecturer is not the one teaching the subject. Why I say this is because a lot of the times you find students who are writing on a particular topic, and they are writing to the reader as though the reader already knows, and that limits you. How so? As a student, you are unable to explain yourself further or elaborate. Okay, because in your head you're like, but the lecturer should already know. Whenever you're writing any topic, assignment, dissertation, any academic document, kindly note that, just as a side note to yourself. Other purpose is to help the reader understand the procedure of process, means that your thought flow, the topic that you've selected, your stance on it, as well as your understanding of how a particular topic unfolds. Okay, remember that all assignments are unique. That is why it's important to always write an assignment when you're alone, not in a group, because a lot of the times if you are writing an assignment in a group, it always happens that some work gets plagiarized, or work becomes too familiar, and it raises a concern for lecturers. Okay, all right. So the other purpose is to provide the reader with an enhanced understanding of the concept. Okay, so that would be a purpose. So if you look at the burger bun itself, this would be the main point, where you are also providing the reader with an enhanced understanding. Okay, so the genre, you're looking at your analysis, your reports, your literary analysis, your reports, your summaries, your comparisons. Basically, it's the instructions that are given. Okay, so this I've already covered. Okay.
Unlock me first.
Sorry. And then now that we are continuing to look at informative writing as well. So the elements of informative writing are that there's always a table of contents that provides an outline of what the contents would be of a particular topic that you're writing about. Usually there are subtopics, meaning that there's a main point and then topics beneath that particular heading. Okay, then there would be headings for each topic. Important details are presented in a chronological order. So this speaks to the previous couple of slides. And then your keywords or your headings are usually bold-faced. Instructions or photos with captions are labeled. And then there's usually diagrams or maps that one provides in order to explain further your assignment, your topic, your stance that you've taken. All right. If there are words that are new, abbreviations or synonyms, usually provide a glossary, but this is in a document. But if it's an assignment, you'll just provide the definition of a particular word, and you can then abbreviate it from further on. Okay. Further going on about informational text structure. Usually with this is that you're looking at ways in which you are introducing your information that has been organized, right? And one of the ways you can introduce work that has been organized or your text itself is to always provide a definition. I always encourage students, whether you're discussing about bullying or a particular topic, always provide a description or a definition. Okay, this allows the reader, or the marker rather, to further see as a student that you are actually understanding the actual topic. Okay, and then if in a particular topic you know that maybe there's a history that you want to narrate or just highlight, you can recollect that, and but just provide it in a sequence, meaning that in a chronological, in an orderly way. Whenever you're writing, you also need to look at cause and effect of a particular topic. I remember one of the students' assignments I was taking a look at this week spoke about bullying, and I also highlighted in one of my comments to her is to say that you need to also look at the cause and the effect of your particular topic, not just to write about the impact your particular topic has. Informational texts always require you to also balance out your work, to look at cause and effect, problem solving, solution as well, and also to look at comparison. So comparison and contrast, whenever you're writing academic work, you can look at other sources, where you're comparing whether or not you agree with a particular topic. You can look at journal articles to see that what you're writing are journal articles or academic sources and agree with it or not. Okay. And then you can look at classification, and then also theses and other sources as evidence. So there's just quite a number of sources one can use as evidence to back up what is it that you're writing. And I'm still going back to it again to say that I'm sure many of you have come across informative writing or different types of writing. You're just maybe not aware of the specific category that it's placed under. But this is for you to know, and to also remind you that within the academic journey, you'll always be reminded of concepts that you've come across or information that you've seen before, but it's just so that it can be engraved in your mind. All right, I'm just going to still continue looking at non-fiction texts again, just to remind you that it's non-fiction texts are real or just not realistic. Remember, the information that you actually obtain from various sources. Okay, you can also look at it's used to inform. So non-fiction text is also used to inform or explain something to the reader or to the audience. Whenever you're writing, the main point or the purpose of your writing is to provide information explaining to the reader or to the audience on your different topics, in order for the reader to actually see that you've done your research and you further have an understanding of your particular topic. Okay. All right, and then we are going to look at a question that many people have asked, or you possibly in your head might ask, but how is an informative text different from other writing? Okay, and the answer is informative text writing is factual, while fiction writing is not. We looked at that earlier to say that informative writing provides you with facts, sequence, structure, and you need to provide evidence. And then, all right. And then we looked at that informative writing is written to inform and explain something, while fictional writing is often a story. We looked at narrative writing, a story conveying an author's point of view. Okay, so we looked at that. So this could be a short story that you have or an experience that you wish to write about. Okay. And then just on my last slide before I take questions, we looked at other types of essays. Okay, so we looked at argumentative or persuasive essays, and this is just an example of examples or an illustration of topics that could be illustrated, okay, or written about in order for you to argue openly about a certain topic, whether you are for it or not, and your whole point is to persuade. Okay, before I continue, I'm going to continue just to look at language barriers that students might encounter when learning. But before I do that, I just want to know, are there any questions, are there any comments in the meantime, so that we can take and then we can move on?
Good morning, Ms. Mafati.
Good morning.
I'm Ms. Penelope.
Hi.
I wanted to ask here, you said on slide 25, non-fiction text. You said it's not realistic. How? What does that mean?
Okay, so so where on slide number?
Slide 25.
Oh, so non-fiction is not realistic. Okay, so
Yes.
at times, okay, it's not to say all non-fiction are non-realistic. It's just that at times you find that some topics that you're writing on, if it's non-fiction, it's not fiction based. It's sometimes not realistic based on your topic that you're writing on. So you might find that if it's a new concept or a new idea that is written on, at times if there's no academic journals or any backing of it, then they just see it as non-realistic. It's not to say they are non-realistic. It just says that some, if there's no academic backing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions? So I will then just continue with looking at language barriers that most have. Okay. So at times you find that, remember, all students are from different backgrounds. You know, UNISA is a long distance learning institution. Many a times you find that by the time you are studying, you're already working or you've got other responsibilities. So on this particular slide is to look at some of the learning barriers students may possibly have and to just identify them. And just my suggestion is to look at ways in which you can look at improving from a particular barrier that maybe personally you might have as well, right? So personal barriers you might look at times it's lack of time. Lack of time could be caused by various challenges. Maybe you might have had a family member going through maybe an illness or a challenge, a particular challenge. At times, a personal barrier is that, you have to start writing academic work now. Instructions are given, you've got quite a number of deadlines, and you are feeling overwhelmed where you are just saying, you know what, am I even competent? I signed up for this particular course, but I'm seeing flames. So at times it might take a dip on your self-confidence. Or when you get feedback from a particular assignment, you're feeling that, you know what, I thought I did well, but now my confidence is reduced because of the mark that I've obtained. So it's different reasons as well, okay? At times you find that in a particular learning area or a particular subject itself, it's still new. Like most of what we've been going through the workshops, at times you find Harvard referencing is just overwhelming for you. And it's based because of you've never practiced it before, you've never come across it, and your lack of learning experience also becomes a personal barrier. So it's different for everybody. I'm just highlighting a few of the possible challenges that students might encounter, so that personally when you go back, I do request that you do reflect and then see a possible solution as to how can you overcome it, okay, so that your academic journey can be a little bit much more bearable. It's not easy being a student. Life still happens and there's still responsibilities that one has to take. But I do urge that of what I'm reading here, of what I'm saying here today, I'm not saying take everything, but take what you think you need and then from there grow from it. Okay. So with personal barriers, you have medical conditions. You might have a health storm or have gone through a certain medical condition that needs your attention And at the same time, you've got assignments, you have to attend workshops, you've got to also self-develop yourself. And at that time, it becomes a personal barrier because you're not working or being at your optimal best. Okay. And just to, when I'm looking at identifying of health of learning barriers, it's just to alert you that with all students during the academic journey, there's some level of barrier or hindrance. So if you just look at this previous slide, you look at a construction site, usually if you're driving on the freeway or you're in any mode of transport, if there's maybe they're fixing a road, there's usually a barrier line or barrier that they create, and that limits you to actually flowing in the you know, let's say it's a 4-lane highway, that will probably be reduced to 2 or to 1 lane because they are busy with construction. So it also, just in the same metaphor, is with us as human beings. We do have barriers, all of us have barriers, but it's how you can maybe try and overcome them as well. And one of the ways you can look at overcoming personal barriers is or all forms of barriers, rather, let me not categorize them. It's to always be self-aware. Okay. If you're noting that, you know what, I'm struggling in a particular area, seek help. All right. You know, with students, I always urge that there's South African Depression and Anxiety Group. I'll actually read out the details later on before I go. I used to work for them before. And they're actually an organization, for those of you who don't know, that provide counseling services to everyone, but it's done telephonically. All right, it's 24 hours. At times, you find that as students, you go through a lot. Personally, and also in your own personal life, you find that other issues around you affect you, other people's issues affect you, and you just want to speak to a therapist and to debrief. It's fine to do that. So I'm just urging you that as students across this academic journey, in whatever field you are in, please be reflective. And once you're seeing that your barriers are becoming a huge hindrance to your academic journey, get the help that you need. Okay, I'm a huge advocate of making sure that twice a year you speak to someone or you see a therapist. Life is so demanding on its own, and you do need some form of venting and just someone who doesn't know you, who's not going to judge you, but would listen to you. Okay. So with socio-cultural barriers, you are looking at cultural barriers. Maybe, let's say, I've had a student who can't attend Saturday classes because of religious and cultural barriers, meaning that they can't because of certain commitments they've made to their church organization, or their church organization doesn't allow for attendance or anything that is done on a Saturday. Okay. So with social barriers, you find that with social barriers, a lot of the times, maybe a person's lifestyle, how they live. Maybe they go to bed very late at night and they actually have to be up early in the morning, and they're unable to maybe attend workshops or to complete assignments in time because of they've created a barrier for themselves. Okay. And also students looking at barriers. Barriers are not necessarily to say that it's you know, it's issues or problems that you or you bring upon yourself. Other times it's issues and or instances, it's things that happen outside your control. Other times it is within your span of control. Okay, just saying that you become more self-aware. Okay, and then you need to also look at social pressure. Social pressure is also looking at now. We are in the month of August, in the last week. You might find that next week, you know, there's a lot of spring festivals taking place. Family gatherings want to take place now. It's getting hot. You know, you've got lots of functions. And on the other hand, you have assignments. You need to prepare for exams. So that can be a barrier to you actually pursuing your academic journey. I always suggest that with students, I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun, but there has to be a limit, and understanding that within your academic journey, it's actually a chapter or a season that requires a lot of your effort and hard work in that time, so that you can then pursue everything else. Okay. Then we look at professional barriers. Professional barriers, you know, you can look at you know, lack of information about learning opportunities. So at times when you know you want to be in a certain career or a profession, you find that you're not having, you know, enough information about maybe vacancies, posts, or maybe internship opportunities. it does become a barrier. Lack of information can be that, okay? All right. One of the professional barriers that I've noted is that scheduling of problems, okay? Scheduling of problems is, problems never go away in any part of life, but there has to come a point where, let's say you have work you need to do, you need to try and block out and try and focus so that you can actually achieve your certain goal. Otherwise, what happens is with professional barriers, if you don't block out, you know, some of the issues you're having, you won't actually get to work, okay? The other professional barrier is what we call administrative red tape barriers. So administrative red tape barriers are just, you know, usually you are unable to actually perform your duties due to maybe a personal barrier. You are unable to, I know with most professionals in my space, work-life balance is an issue at times. So I'm a therapist by profession. You find that when you're dealing with people's issues, at times you find that there's no balance you have. So at home and at work, you can't differentiate between the two. So it's always important to try and divide, to know that I'm at work now, I'm at home now. You differentiate the two, okay? And then professional peer pressure. Professional peer pressure is very different. It depends on the field you are in. At times you find that in a specific field, example I've noticed, and I'm not being biased, but I'm just giving an explanation to say what I've observed. This is my own personal observation. You find that once you are at a certain standing, or you're professional, or you've been working for a few years, especially with women, you know, if you come into their kitchen at times, depending on what they like, they prefer certain brands, you know. And if you don't have a certain pot that's written with a certain brand, then it's not good enough, okay? So that's the kind of peer pressure that one can experience. And then professionally as well, you can also experience that in a certain profession. If you're working, this is the kind of car you need to drive. So it's just different barriers or peer pressures that you need to be aware of. But I always advise that, you know, you always walk within your own space and in your own lane, all right? And then also motivational barriers. At times you find that, you know, I know that those of you who have the TikTok app, there's a lot of people who are motivating and are speaking a lot of good things. But at times you find that, you know, there's what we call toxic positivity. Too much of the same thing over and over and over becomes a bit toxic as well. Because somewhere, somehow in your life, you need to work through your own issues, like I've mentioned. You need to be self-aware. And you find that people just always want to be positive about everything. It's not possible. People go through different challenges. Times you might find that you're not motivated to do an assignment. You're procrastinating because you're fearful of something. At times you find that your lack of motivation is because you don't understand a topic itself. So I'm not saying it's giving an excuse, but it's just more that you become a bit self-aware as well. Okay. Let me just continue with identifying barriers, and then we can maybe have a little discussion around it. Okay. So the types of learning barriers. Here we are looking at learning obstacles, lack of importance or uncertainty of uncertainty of importance. So at times you find that, you know, you think, and when you read an assignment topic, it looks easy. Remember, you've got 6 weeks to still do it. So it looks easy. It doesn't look as challenging. And 3 days before the assignment is due, a day before, you realize that I actually need to write 5 pages, and writing 5 pages is not as easy as I thought. Okay. At times with learning obstacles, you find that students have difficulty in reaching a learning goal. Reaching a learning goal due to various barriers we have identified. Times you don't understand. Times you have your own personal challenges at the time. You have work pressure. You have a deadline at work, you have a deadline at home, there's a function happening, there's many things that happen. So it's not to say we are giving excuses, but it's to be more self-aware about the different learning obstacles that you might encounter on your academic journey. Okay. The other one is of stress in reaching a learning goal. Sometimes, remember, with all the courses that you've registered for, you might find that you've set out your own target to say that with this particular course, I'm looking at an 80 or a cum laude, and you might not reach it. So at times, because of various issues or challenges that happen. So there's stress in reaching a learning goal. You know, you need to work hard. You need to give the time that's dedicated. You need to reach out for extra help. There's work that goes into it. Okay. And then at times you find that you have doubts about success. Does happen where you become intimidated a little bit about it, or to say that, will I even achieve this particular goal or degree within a certain number of years, or do I need to extend it? Just to look at the doubts about success again, it's just to highlight to students to say that we all have a journey or a map that we highlight and say, you know what, within the next couple of years, I want to be done with this module. At times you find that you have your own personal challenges that inhibit you from doing that. Always make sure that you become realistic, and if you need to extend by a year, try and do that so that you can in the end reach your desired output. Lack of control. You find that at times you cannot control your timing. Your there's an assessment that's due and you actually don't have enough time. You've answered the first 3 questions and it's online, and by the time the 4th question comes, you are left with 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So it becomes a little bit challenging. Okay. There's also lack of support from others. You might find that, when you are studying, as one of the motivational killers, it could be for some people, is not having support from their peers, family, and friends. Maybe you're studying a particular course. It's important to, not saying alert everybody around you, but the most important people that you are interacting with, to tell them, guys, I'm actually embarking on a certain course and I'm going to be in need of your support. If you're at home, you're a mother, it's always important to alert the family members to say that on Saturday mornings, example, I have a workshop from 8:30 to 10:30 or to 11 o'clock. I am asking that everybody in this house, you become silent. If you need to do anything, be a bit quiet, or you set certain boundaries so that your learning can be a little bit easy. Another learning obstacle I found is, just in my line of work, is that people don't set boundaries. You find that as a student, you have a deadline that's due, but because remember that family members take time to adjust to your routine. So they might know that you've always been a person that's the go-to person for certain things or help. And when they need help, they can actually ask you. So what you normally need to do is to block out time. If someone needs you, you need to study, switch off your phone, put it on silent, and make sure that you actually focus on your schoolwork. Then when you are done with your particular schoolwork, then you can get back to people. Also limiting how much of yourself you give as well. Okay, so this is just to reduce some of the barriers that you might find as a student as well. Okay. And then you also have hassles at times due to high expectations, where you have more work or more complexity in your workspace, and that also when lack of advantages, meaning that lack of advantages at times it depends on the course you're studying. Maybe you're not finding enough sources themselves, so it becomes a little bit of a challenge for you. So before I continue on unpacking maybe just texts and that, does anyone just maybe want to reflect or just have a comment that they want to say about the different learning barriers? Were you aware of the different learning barriers, and have you come across some of your own ones as well?
No, ma'am. You listed some quite of things that we face. I think if personally, some of them I struggle with a lot. So it's just a matter of trying to realize how to move forward from it and not dwell on it and take it one step at a time. So I have challenges with timing and content. I usually also set certain goals at the beginning of the year, like, okay, I'm going to submit my assignments on time, try to manage my time as well. But along the way, it just gets too much and overwhelming.
Okay. All right. And then have you found ways of actually working on it?
Recently I've just I'm working on scheduling time for certain module, and also focusing more on certain modules that on certain topics that I feel I do not understand completely. So that kind of helps for now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That can work. But I think the most important thing about Berry is just highlighting it's highlighting what works and what doesn't work for you, and to be self-aware. I think that can also help you as well. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else on learning barriers or anything that you maybe want to comment on?
I sometimes find it difficult when I have to read when I have to read on my own. I think I've got a language barrier,
Okay.
but when I listen to the teachings, I don't necessarily forget that easily. But when I have to read, I find it difficult sometimes to understand what I'm reading. So that's why sometimes I feel like if UNISA had physical classes where maybe there could be a teacher in front of me, because previously where they used to have these tutorial classes in the regions, I would pass those modules that I attend physically, but when I read on my own, I'll read one page and over, and still not understand the whole content of it. So I am trying to overcome that by getting my colleagues at work to help me understand what I read, because there's a lot of reading the tutorial letters, the study guides, the prescribed textbook themselves, but I'm still not there yet. Yeah, that's what I'm not that I don't. Another challenge I think that I'm also having, because I'm also working, is that I sometimes have to bring work home. So which I work during the day, and in the evening I also have to continue with work that belongs to my daily job, and still read and be a mother, and all those things. Yeah, I think maybe I need to find a way of making sure that I plan properly. I'm still struggling with that.
Okay. I think if you're still struggling with that, like I did say that I can provide numbers for SADC, but maybe if you'd need, let's say, just to, as part of individual consultation, let's see how best to assist you, because one of them is just to make sure that students are supported. And, all of us have different roles, and work-life balance is an issue. So it's something that maybe you can look at, that I can send you some stuff on, and you can see how best this can help you, maybe with your reading, your writing, but also with work-life balance as well.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
pleasure.
That would be
Anyone?
much appreciated.
Can I comment
Yes.
on for Noblunga? Noblunga, do you perhaps have a laptop? I was thinking that if you're struggling with reading content, and then downloading the study material or the study guide, and then when you open it on Microsoft, then you have an option where it reads the study guide for you, and then you have an option for listening instead of reading it. So maybe you can use that.
I use a laptop. I like as I've connected now. I'm using a laptop. I don't know how to do what you just explained to me. Maybe if you can guide me. I have downloaded my documents from the UNISA's website.
Yes.
My UNISA. And if you
So,
can guide me, how do I do the
so when you open my PC on the before you open the document, just click on the right side, for options on the document, and then there's a certain one that says open with, and then when you click there, it will give you an option. If you have an Adobe, it will give you an option to open the document with an Adobe or with Microsoft Edge website. And then when you click for Microsoft Edge, then it will open automatically to the Microsoft. And then just on top, there's a certain options there on top of the screen. Then it says read aloud. Then you click on it, and then it will read the document once it's opened for you.
I would love to get a contact so we can do this manually. Because now I think I might be blocking other students who also wants to ask questions.
Okay, no problem.
I don't know if you can see our numbers.
You can also write the details on the chat so that other students who might also be in need
for
the information can make use of it. You can write the steps, and you can also give Penelope your contacts. Thank you.
Yeah, Kutlwano, thank you so much. Sorry for, is it Nokulunga who was sharing, or was it Kutlwano?
Nokulunga.
No, was sharing about how to actually obtain, to convert a normal document so that it can be in audio.
It was Penelope.
Oh, Penelope, thank you so much for that. It actually helps a lot, and I wasn't even aware of that, but I think that it can help a lot of the other students in order, sometimes remember what we were saying about reading strategies. Some other people are visual, others are more audio, so that can actually assist the other students, and I'm hoping that it can make a bit of a difference for their learning and also for them not to lack motivation, because this can also lead to lack of motivation. It's a barrier that, when you need to do an assignment, you see that you don't understand, but if you could hear maybe the instruction being read, it becomes a lot easier. All right, anyone else before I continue?
I'm sorry, hello. Hi, it's Kutlwano. I also use that method for read aloud, especially if I know that I have to complete a chapter on a certain day. I can also use it on my phone, then just listen through the AirPods while I'm busy with something else. But with regards to learning barriers that we encounter as students, I myself had almost all the learning barriers that you listed earlier on. As soon as I completed my honors at UJ, I wanted to be the superhuman, and I enrolled for law at UNISA, and I ventured into business, and the business was thriving, and I bought myself a Mercedes, and then I still needed to study, and I was so focused on making money that I decided that I'd just do the 5 modules. Then I opted out of UNISA for some time. Then once everything was calm, I decided to come back. And I'm seeing that it's easier for me to understand a lot of things and just to get my work done, because I'm at a point where the aspect of self-realization, I'm at a point where I know who I am and what I want, and I'm not easily influenced by external factors. So now studying just comes naturally. Like even with my time at work, if I'm not busy, I have my own file with all the study guides at work, and I have ones for at home. So if I'm not busy at work, I instead of walking around the office and gossiping and chit-chatting, I'm able to study. And when I get home, I have a lot of support from my family. So when I get home, it's just easy, you know. So it's just knowing who you are and what you want. I don't know if it works with age, but things just start settling on their own, you know. I don't know. But in my younger years, law was very hard. For the first 5 modules, which were introductory, were very hard for me. But the last 5 that I'm doing now, they're just coming naturally. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
I think also it's lived experience, and also it just takes time with settling and also being decisive as to, you know what, maybe let me take a bit of time, because remember the academic journey also requires a little bit of focus. If you're a bit distracted and there's going on, you need to maybe look at being realistic in terms of goal setting as well. Yeah. But well done with that. And also just with the others, maybe at home, if you don't have enough space or you cannot concentrate, utilize the library, or maybe looking at if you're working, your workspace, if you can knock off a little bit later to utilize maybe the office space to study, you know, just see different ways that you can navigate your own personal barriers. Okay, I think there's no more questions for now. If I can just maybe continue, and we can then look at taking further questions on. All right. And then in the end, if I don't provide the numbers for SEDEC, please remind me that I do provide them, so that you actually can receive the necessary psychosocial support. And with that as well, just to mention, with the psychosocial support, it's free. There's no payment that you make. It's a toll-free number. You can call 24 hours. You'll definitely get assisted. Okay. All right. So so when we're looking here, I just wanted to look at unpacking, you know, when you're starting now to prepare your own academic writing, please be aware of the different tasks that or different instructions, task words rather, that task words that we are, you know, looking at. So your lecturer might then ask you to to actually answer your specific question in your specific essay in a specific way. Example, so maybe your lecturer might say, critically evaluate a certain concept, but then you need to then unpack. Maybe you can look at this particular image. You need to then look at what is critically evaluate. Means that you're taking a position on a basis of your own analysis, you know. So you need to then analyze information. But when you're analyzing information, how do you do it thoroughly and deeply? You need to look at different sources. Okay. Then as instruction can come, the first line is account for certain, maybe a topic. But then here, what account for means, that it basically means for you to give reasons, explain why something is taking place. Okay. Argue, we looked at argumentative writing a little bit. So, you know, when you're arguing, you're making a case, you are justifying, you are using appropriate evidence to show, to substantiate what you're saying. Another word that is used, it can be, that's commonly used in most assignments or even exams. As we are preparing for exams, you'll be preparing for exams in the next month. Describe the following. It means that you're just giving an accurate account, or you're identifying important aspects of a particular subject. It just means that, just encouraging that you begin, you know, unpacking and further further understanding specific keywords that are mentioned. You don't discuss and you think that by discussing you've described, you know. So just to it's just taking it a little bit up, a notch up, so that your understanding is further enhanced. Okay, so here we're saying discuss, it means that you're providing a critical account, exploring all sides of the debate. Okay, and hence assignments, I urge you, please don't try and write an assignment a day before. It usually doesn't go well, especially if you have to do referencing, and that it's a lot more challenging. Okay, and then here where it says evaluate, when you're evaluating, you're actually giving a reasoned account showing good and bad points. So you can also, maybe the instruction might say evaluate and contrast, so you can do both. Okay, all I'm saying here is to kindly request that you do look at the instruction that is given. Okay, then when we are looking at assignment questions, they usually have 5 aspects that are tied to them. It's firstly the topic, the general subject area. All right, then the general subject area, it means the actual topic of the or the subject that needs to be covered in the assignment. The focus, you specify the aspect or what you wish to focus on. Here, I would like you to remember the burger, and you need to just look at the filling that you would be putting inside your burger patty. Okay, your command, what should you do? So your command, should you argue, should you account for, should you critically evaluate, should you describe, discuss, evaluate? What is the instruction? Okay. A limit, what you should not do. A limit, at times you find that a limit becomes that to say, do not let's say, do not write more than 10 pages. Use certain sources. So there will be a limit or instructions that you are given in most assignment questions. So this is just a highlight to remind you. I am aware many of you have come across this, but just to remind you and to highlight. Okay. So I will further just touch on here. Just example here would be a subject, would be on media. Instruction words would be discuss or use, make use of or use. The key concepts here would be, or keywords here would be, how the media influences children. Then here what you would need to do is to use specific examples of how that happens or takes place. Then additional information that the lecturer might give you would be that there has to be a word count of no more than 1,500 words and a certain due date. But this is something that you would do for yourself after reading a particular instruction about an assignment. Those of you who are struggling with maybe unpacking or maybe understanding what is being asked, try and separate your work into subject, instruction, words. What is the lecturer asking? Are they asking me to describe, to evaluate, to critically analyze what is being asked of me? Keywords. Maybe I need to look at bullying in schools or in the workplace bullying. All right, additional information. Maybe they will say that use not more than 5 sources or less than 6 sources, just as an illustration. Okay, this is something on the slide that you can actually do for yourself. Right? So further on to unpack what it is that we were talking about is to look at instructions that are given when having to write an assignment or having to answer an exam question. You need to ask yourself, what is it? What, examples, am I being asked to define, to describe, to identify, to outline? All right. And then also the other the other ways of answering a question would be, I'm looking at the bottom here for those of you who are wondering where I'm at. But I'm just going to ask that if you do request the slides, you can further look at this particular slide. And then one of the other ways that one of the ways that an examiner might phrase a question is for you to examine, to compare, to explain, and to discuss. Okay? Remember, I'm touching back here. I'm going back here to say, looking at the particular instruction, what is the lecturer asking of you? Times you might find the lecturer might not only say argue, critically evaluate, describe, or discuss. They might ask you to rather, let's go to the green bar, where they maybe might say analyze or assess your understanding of or distinguish. What I'm going to then ask you is that whenever you get any words on the bottom here, please try and to utilize this way of actually unpacking a sentence or an instruction, to look at the subject, the instruction words, the key concepts, the additional information. I do urge you, it makes work a little bit better. Okay, so that you can actually not become overwhelmed. And I don't want students lacking motivation because of not understanding a particular instruction. Okay, so here you would look at evaluating, assessing, arguing, comparing, recommending, justifying. This is just ways that you can critically evaluate. If you look here, if you look here, one of the instructions was to critically evaluate. How you critically evaluate, if you look at this particular slide, is that you usually evaluate, you assess, you argue, you compare, you recommend. This is how you do it. And then on the green bar, this is how you normally analyze. You might ask yourself, if an instruction comes to say, analyze the following, how do you go about doing it? These are part of the words that you can utilize. I hope I'm making sense. And if it's the first time you're coming across it, please take a look and later on request the slides again. And I'm happy to have a discussion at a later stage if you do request any further information. Okay? All right, when you're creating, you're actually combining parts that make a whole. Usually when you are writing an assignment, you are creating parts, you are joining words, you are forming some form of cohesion, okay? And then when you are evaluating, you are judging the value of information or of ideas. So this is usually you providing some level of analysis, okay? So when you're also analyzing here, you are breaking down information into compartments, meaning that you are differentiating, you are dividing your work. So if you look at this previous slide here, you can actually refer to that as well, okay? And then one of the instructions that might come is apply your understanding of this particular topic. So applying means that you are looking at the facts with regarding to a particular topic, rules, concepts, and ideas, okay? So it's an application question, right? Then if you're looking at, if you're understanding, so understanding means that you need to elaborate further on your interpretation of the actual facts. Okay, and this is where many of you have asked me before, what happens if I have my own thoughts? It is important to also include that. It's fine. As long as it's backing from literature or your own voice is heard at the end, that's also still fine. Okay, so one of the instructions that the lecturer might have is to remember a certain instruction. So it's just remembering also helps with recalling of facts and also of instructions that the particular lecturer has or requires of you. Okay, so here this is just an illustration of what we had just previously looked at. So maybe looking at, maybe further explaining. So with remember as well, you would be looking at retrieving relevant information. So you'd be recalling it. If this is a particular topic that you've heard of before, so you would use recalling, remembering, okay? Understanding, we looked at it, so I'm just not going to read through everything, but I will then just request that you do take your time to, even if you request the slides and cut out this particular slide number 37, and whenever you have an assignment or you place it in your diary in order to understand a topic, it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so here we looked at understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So just an expansion of this particular slide. Okay, and then again here, it's just more of an elaboration as to, when we talk about cognitive complexity, just looks at different ways or different layers of when you need to answer a question, your understanding of it and your interpretation therefore, and also looking at a particular instruction given by the lecturer. It is important that you do adhere to how you answer it. So you cannot be describing when you need to be critically analyzing or evaluating. Okay, just always look at the instruction. And I did say that some of these phrases might be new. Get the slides, cut them out, reread think about them. If you're still struggling or you have an assignment that requires you to look at a certain topic, then I am happy to assist as well. Okay, so this is all the concepts that we have looked here, but here again, it's slide number 36, but here again they are elaborated on. Okay, so we are looking at slide number 39 again. It's the same as the other slides, just provides you with a bit of illustrations, examples that you can use. Let's say when you're looking at applying, you can use diagrams, you can make use of a chart. Yeah, so like I said, in one of my other workshops, I had looked at different forms of charts that you can use, or tools that you can use whenever you're writing an assignment. You can take a look at that as well. Okay, I hope this helps in some way, so that whenever you're answering a question, you don't look at it from just one particular instruction. Look at it to say, am I being asked to evaluate, to analyze, to apply, to create, to describe maybe, and what is my understanding thereof? Okay. So just with the last couple of slides before our time is done, is to just remind you that exam season is approaching in the next couple of months. I don't want to give you anxiety of any sort, but just to alert you that you need to start from next month. Start looking at ways in which you can begin preparing, and in order to make your life a little bit easier as well. Okay, so if this year in particular has been a form of a challenge, and I still go back to the words I've been saying. Many of the exam tips that I'm going to share here, you've heard of them before. Nothing is new. So if it is new, I'm glad you can take it down. But if it's not, please use it as a point of emphasis and also adapt it to your own way that it can actually assist you. Okay. So one of the tips that's given is to always start early, even in an assignment. Start as early as possible. Whether you accumulate your books, you accumulate all your study guides together, you start making notes, start working early. If the exam scope is given out, start as early as possible. All right. Another thing that I'm going to suggest to students is, a lot of the times you find that this is such a big topic that I need to prepare for the exam. Maybe on the weekend I'll have time. Even if, let's say, you start having your own sleep routine, maybe before you go to work, you need to wake up 30 minutes before and make notes for 30 minutes. Over time, it's cumulative, and you'll see the difference, to say that when it's actually time to study, you've actually started something way before. It makes a huge difference, right? Start planning your time. Start looking at ways in which you can incorporate little, we call it time blocks, where you block out a bit of time for yourself in order to prioritize, whether it's exam preparation or you're starting to study. So with exam preparation, you can start now starting a new sleep routine or a new routine for yourself. Okay, you've got about a month. You can still start something new to see whether it works for you or not. Okay. The one distraction is to, maybe here it says avoid your phone, but it's not always the phone that's your distraction. You might find that it's something else. So just look at what could be a distraction for you, and also maybe limiting that. And with limiting that, we're not always saying don't completely stay away from it. Maybe limit yourself and say you're going to give yourself a particular amount of time, maybe to watch certain soapies or certain, Netflix, if you're addicted to Netflix or TikTok or anything like that, always make sure that you put time barriers if you're starting something new. All right. And then also practice, like I was saying, that in the month of September, if you're starting exams in November, October, November, December, it would be a nice time to practice, to see that, listen, throughout the couple of years of this year, I wasn't so efficient when it came to preparation. What can I do? Maybe try wake up 30 minutes before, or before I go to work, because I'm a lot fresher. Or maybe try, during lunchtime, read up something. I don't know. Look at what works for you. But I always say practice it before you actually implement it, to see where can you improve, right? And then also remember to take breaks. Drinking water, taking breaks, exercising, walking, stretching, you need to do that in order for there to be a bit of blood flow. Okay. I know that other people, when they are studying, they use a skipping rope to skip, just so that there's blood flow as well within their system. Okay. So there's also here what I wanted to share about an exam prep cycle. So an exam prep cycle is just a cycle that it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to adhere to the number of days prior to planning, but you're an individual, you know what works for you and what doesn't work. So try and see what you can optimize. Okay. Okay. So with step 1, you can practice your exams. So you can practice, meaning that you can get past exam papers and see if you're answering the questions well after you have studied, or even before studying, to evaluate yourself to see, are you even answering the right information, and what do you know and what do you don't know. Okay. Number 2, you can try and take an exam looking at maybe a different past paper to see if you're doing well or not and you're understanding. Okay. And you can also ask someone else to mark it for you. Okay. Or you can mark it yourself, it's still fine. At the end of the day, you don't want to cheat yourself, but you want to see, do you understand what is it that you might expect in an exam? Okay. And then exam-specific study sessions. Exam-specific study sessions just simply speaks to you working out your own exam timetable. How often will you study? When? Where? And for how long? And also, what are your personal barriers? What are your distractions? What can you do in order for your sessions to be a little bit easier? Okay. And I always say to students, when it comes to exam study sessions, please have boundaries. A lot of the times you find people in our own environments at times don't have boundaries. They are always demanding of you. Maybe throughout the entire year, they've been making demands on you, but they don't see that, you know what, this is exam season. You need to prepare. So maybe switch your phone off, get back to people at a later stage. Say no. No is a complete sentence if you're unable to assist, so that you can actually achieve the end result. Okay. Right. And then we still say, then again, you'll still take, so you'll keep taking your exam rehearsals. You'll keep working on quite a number of previous exam papers. So this actually sees, this actually evaluates whether or not you're adequately prepared. Okay. And then step number 5, you can also, refresh your mental health. And one of the ways you refresh your mental health is to just share your experience with someone, see a therapist, speak to a therapist. Like I was saying, I can share with SEDEC numbers, it's toll free. You can also start a new health habit for yourself. Okay. And during exam cycle prep, we always urge students to try and eat as healthy as possible. Take nutrients such as omega-3, 6 and 9, even before. It helps with concentration, it helps with just your overall health, and also just a multivitamin as well. It's going to help you with your energy. So in the morning after eating, take a multivitamin, and then you'll start seeing that you'll build energy reserves that can actually assist you. Okay. And just with the omega-3 and your multivitamin is just my personal suggestion. I'm not saying you need to do it, but at times you do need to do that. It building energy reserves over time helps. Unlike taking Red Bulls all the time, I'm actually against that very much. You only need to take it if it's really on a need-to basis, because what then tends to happen is that you'll start developing other illnesses, anxiety, palpitations unnecessarily, because there's a lot of stress that your body goes through during exams. So rather try and exercise, skipping or walking or something that works for you, and then also making sure that over time you build your energy reserves. And also, one of the best remedies when preparing for exams as well, sleeping. A lot of the time students say, you know what, I struggle. If I'm sleeping, I feel guilty. No, you need to speak to your mind and tell yourself that, listen, for today, we are going to be sleeping for the whole day, or we are resting today. And I'm not going to be much on my phone, so that my brain can try and slow down. Then I can try ease into the exam preparation mode. You need to do that. All right. Because without proper sleep, you're not going to absorb the information you need to, and you'll find yourself so frustrated to say, I've spent 5 hours or 6 hours or 12 days or 30 days, but I'm seeing no result at all. Okay, so I urge all of you to try and do that. And then I'm on the second last slide, and I'm just asking that you bear with me so that we actually wrap up. Okay, so one of the common mistakes that I made during exam preparation is mugging up. So you are just drinking way too much coffee, way too much caffeine. I'm actually requesting that you limit your caffeine intake to 1 or 2 cups a day. For those of you who are taking more, try and look at better ways to manage your energy levels. Okay, at times you find that during exam times for students, it's better to even go to a pharmacy. I know Discom and others. You can get a vitamin B, you can get tablets, or you can get an injection, and that helps with the energy reserves. The only downside about vitamin B is that you eat a lot. So it's, so it's just one of the downsides, but you'll have energy, but you also need to sleep a lot, drink water, try and see where you can get a better balance. Okay. And then one of the common mistakes that are made is that students either don't revise or they do improper revision. So maybe their revision is a bit rushed or they don't have enough time. Okay, that can be one of the mistakes that's made, and it impacts you when it comes to exam time. It is important that you make time for revision, okay, to see, can your brain recall? Do you understand what you've been reading all along and studying? All right. Sometimes underestimating diligence. So sometimes underestimating the 30 minutes that I was suggesting you take before you go to bed or in the morning. The little habits that can help you, you sometimes underestimate them, thinking, I don't have to be diligent. If you have a routine, it makes your life a little bit easy. Okay. Not taking mock tests or those previous exam papers to see if you can be able to answer. If it's 2 hours, can you do it in 2 hours? Sometimes if you don't do it and you actually wait for the actual exam day, you actually might be overwhelmed. Okay, so these are the common mistakes that I made. Then the other one is also depending on others. Learning is your own responsibility. Sometimes you might find that you actually have a study group and people don't show up. So you need to also learn that if people don't show up, you also need to try and continue so that your workflow is not disturbed. One of the common mistakes that's made is procrastinating. We put things off till the last minute and you are overwhelmed at the end. So maybe trying to avoid this if you're a person who procrastinates a lot. And a lot of times people procrastinate because of fear. Sometimes you want to be a perfectionist, you want to get it right first. We always say, just like writing, you don't have to get the grammar right or anything right, just write. Okay, if you want to prepare for exams, start putting all your work together. Okay. The other common mistake that is made is of multitasking. Having way too many tasks at hand, it becomes difficult. So I'm actually urging you that if you have a lot of tasks, you need to prioritize what is important, what can I put off. Okay. One of the other common mistakes is putting or starting at the last minute. Actually becomes a challenge if you start at the last minute because your brain is overwhelmed. You're already starting to stress a little bit. Then the last common mistake that is made is sticking on some topics. So instead of you maybe looking at other topics, you're focusing on one particular one that you are so good at, but it limits you from actually understanding other topics. Okay. And then I'm on my second last slide, where the suggestion is to study smarter, not harder. So we are urging you to eat properly. I know that eating properly sometimes is a challenge, depending on our lifestyles, where we are working, where we are at, it depends. But try, if not, take a multivitamin omega-3 as I've suggested as your part of your preparation. Sleep well. I'm a huge advocate of sleep. You need to shut down. If you don't, and you don't prepare yourself enough, your brain will not be able to recall some of that. Okay. At times you might find that your brain works well under a lot of pressure, but over time it's not going to serve you well. So I'm always asking that people get enough sleep as they can. Okay. maybe I don't know if I should say this, but I'll just say it. So I remember when I was studying my master's, I actually I used to come back from work around 6. Okay, this is just a personal sharing, and I'd be so exhausted, and I knew that I couldn't study. I needed to write my I was done with coursework, and I actually needed to write my research, my chapters, and that takes a lot of time, and it needs a lot of focus. So where I was working required me to be always on the ball, and I couldn't drop it. So what I would do is I went to my doctor and I asked him, and I asked her, and I said, listen, I need to start a new sleep cycle, meaning that I'm not a person who sleeps at 8, but I need to sleep at 8 in order to wake up around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, so that I can at least have 3 hours of work, of typing of work or writing or reading, and then at 6 o'clock I can get ready. So for me to start a new sleep cycle, I actually asked the doctor, and he prescribed, it's called melatonin. It's actually a sleep hormone, and usually it's given to people that, let's say you're flying from here, you're flying into another country where the time zone is different from here. It just helps you to reset your sleep and help you sleep if you're struggling to do that. So you can actually ask your doctor. I'm not saying it's just something that across the years I've used once or twice, a couple of times, just to help me with sleep cycle, and then your body gets used to sleeping at that particular time. It's just resetting your sleep cycle, but that's dependent on you. Okay. The other is of exercise. We spoke about that. Different forms of exercise work for different people. Google what works for you, or go on YouTube, TikTok, but please, a bit of blood flow helps as well. And then distract strategies. Make sure that you block out as much distractions as you can. Look at what works for you. With me, what works for me, I always switch off my phone. I won't be available. The most important people know which number to get me on, and the rest, I always say that the world can wait if there's something important I need to do. Okay, so also look at relaxation techniques. One of the relaxation techniques, maybe I can one time look into it. It's quite an easy technique. We also use it in therapy. We call it the breathing technique. Some of you might have come across it, where you learn to breathe. It's you just breathe in and out, but at different cascades, so that your brain actually has more oxygen. I'll just maybe read a slide next week to highlight that. And then also take regular breaks. Drink maybe rooibos tea if you're a coffee person, but not way too much. Like I said, you don't want to be addicted to caffeine. And then that is from me. Those are the slides that I have for today. I'm not sure if there are questions or comments before we wrap up. Okay.
Sorry, yes.
Good enough.
Just yeah, with regards to the constraints that we discussed earlier on, I don't know if we covered the financial constraints, because I know that many of us have financial constraints, and also we also need to, as a person, you should be able to identify what triggers your anxiety. Like personally for me, it's procrastinating my assignments, then having to do them a day or two. I find myself stressing out about if the work is correct, and the UNICEF system, if it's going to be overloaded when I submit, and just to add on, as a student, you should get rid of the I know mentality. I know as you've been presenting, you've been saying, I know you guys might know this, but just to share with others, like, always be open-minded and always be willing to learn, whether you know or not. Sometimes you can know something while it's wrong. While it's wrong, you can know an incorrect thing. So always be willing to listen to other people, especially your staff from UNISA, your lecturers, therapists, and yeah. With just in closing, with brain boosters, I personally take omega-3. I find it's very affordable, and I get vitamin B12 injections every now and then, only if I'm exhausted. Yeah. And also I drink chamomile tea if I want to sleep. it's a healthier option than what I used to take. I used to take Xanax. It was prescribed by a doctor, but it's very addictive. So this year I've just been taking omega-3, vitamin B12, and drinking chamomile. Just want to thank you for all these lessons that we've had. They've been good. They've been a refresher. It's also weird that we get attached to you, Maputi. Like we're looking forward to Saturday so we can just talk to you. Just thank you so much. I know that today is not your working day. God bless you. I hope we cross paths again.
No problem. Thank you so much, Kutano. And just to encourage the other students, like I was saying, I'm always saying that it comes from a point of humility. You can never underestimate your audience to say that the students don't know anything. There's things that I'll also learn from you. And I also look forward to Saturdays to just try and impart what I know and to also hear what the students also struggling with and going through. But just to encourage you that, like I said, this academic journey is like a muscle. When you are done with your degree, you'll feel so great and you'll say, you know what, there's things that I've learned. And maybe a few years down the line, you'll still come across the same concepts, but it's nice when you know that you attended a workshop and then something that you've picked up. Thank you so much. Penelope?
Yes, I wanted to ask on some advice on, you touched on having to have enough sleep. So sometimes when you try sleep, and as you said that we stress that I'm thinking about this assignment, so you can't sleep. It's like you're trying to sleep but your mind is awake, if that makes sense. And at times I don't know how I can't sleep at that moment, and I'll just end up on my phone just trying to get some sleep. So how can one move forward from that?
Okay, so when you're struggling with sleep does take time. Hey, sleep does become a challenge at times for a lot of people because of depending where your mind is at. So maybe with you can start looking at we call it sleep hygiene. Look at a bath routine whereby before you go to sleep, you'll possibly take a bath and your phone is charged and you know that you're not going to be on your phone. Remember, your brain takes a while to shut down. And then maybe, just as a tip, I'm not saying you use the same formula, but maybe 30 minutes before you know what, I want to be in bed by 9, 8:30, start going into bed. And then your mind is going to wander off, but eventually you'll sleep. All right. And then if you're really, really struggling with that, chamomile tea, like Udlana suggested, if you're a tea person, it helps you to calm down. Sometimes people drink rooibos with milk. It helps as well. So looking at other homeopathic ways that can help you sleep. If not, I did say that there's also, but your doctor can prescribe it. But it's not something you'll take over a long period of time. It's melatonin. It's a hormone that your brain naturally treats it when you need to go to sleep. Okay, but it take a little bit longer. If you're starting a new sleep cycle, it's called melatonin. And you just drink that 30 minutes before you are in a dark place, you sleep. And then that's how your sleep routine would start. Sometimes having an eye mask over your eyes helps if a place is dark. Others can't cover their eyes, I understand, but if you can, you do that. Or just make the room dark, and your phone, it's either it's upside down for you to hear your alarm, and you just need to try. It takes time, but don't put too much pressure on yourself thinking that I need to get it right. It takes a while, but it's also a bit of discipline to say, you know what, I know I'm feeling like this. Maybe I'm feeling like I want to go on my phone because I can't sleep, but you'll get it. Your body will start getting into it.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Anyone else? We're trying to cover this exam topic because I don't want now when exams start and then we're giving you tips, and it's things that you could have started practicing, reading about, thinking about. So you need to start looking into it. It works for you, okay? All right. Thank you so much to all the students for attending today.
Isn't this our last session?
No. So what will happen is we have quite a number. There's quite a few workshops that still remain. I think I need to look at I need to speak to Ms. Janke about, some might be during the week, né? But let me first speak to Ms. Janke about it, because some will be on the weekend, because there's quite a number. We need to be done by the end of September. I've worked for SEDEC before, no? So it's 24-hour line, it's toll-free. There's a therapist on the other end that will be able to assist you. Okay. Let me just, that's another number that you can utilize. So it can be this one, the suicide crisis line, or just the normal number as well. It's also the 0800, the 708090 number. Okay. So this is called SEDEC. So anytime for psychosocial support. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So those are the details. You can take a screenshot or just a picture, and then these will also be available on the slides as well. I'll resend to Ms. Janke in a bit. So for everyone, thank you so much for coming today, for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday.